What's up, guys? Welcome to the Shane Vitko Podcast. This is a little bit different format today. This isn't so much a Q&A of somebody's hard way home, if you will. This is my friend Jack Campbell. I've known Jack for, 5, 6 years. We met in LA. I watched him go through some struggles and go through some hardships and, ultimately get his shit together. And the guy that I once knew who was just like such an introverted, closed off human being and is somebody that I run by ideas by and talk to a lot. And I had been talking to Jack about doing breath work, and he told me he wanted to do a session and that he'd be willing to record the aftermath of what happened for him and what's going on. I feel like there's a lot of people that know what I do, but they don't really know what I do. They don't really know what breath work is. So, Jack, I really appreciate you coming on. I think down the line, I'd love to have you on to definitely tell your story, because you got a very interesting and strong story to tell. But that's not what we're here for today. So you did your first breathwork session. Talk to me.
Well, first and foremost, it's been a pleasure getting to know you since 2019. And I mean, your transformation, mine, it's just been fun to be together, and can't thank you enough for leading the way. But man, let's get into the breath work. Where do I begin? You can look at me and yeah, I was just crying for the last 30 minutes. It was, you know, I guess a little background on me. I've experienced a little bit of breath work, but mainly just for performance and dealing with some anxiety for in-game kind of play, sports related. This breath work that you just did with the last 60, 90 minutes, whatever it was, it flew by, was like, I was trying to use a big word, but I just don't have one big enough in my vocabulary. I guess it was just all the things I wanted to let out, but I didn't know how, naturally took its course. And frankly, it just felt long overdue. And I just want to thank you for getting that out.
I think, a lot of times when I have men or women that athletes or have done something, like, you're a very strong breather, like you can tell that you've been conditioned properly, the way that you would breathe. And I knew that it was going to be a pretty intense experience for you. Some things that I wanted to address that I saw come up for you was, like, obviously the hands, like I told you, like I had George on last week. When George did breath work, same thing. He was locked up in the crab hands. And what I like to do with this is give you reality and then kind of the breathwork lore, right? Because everything is physiological. And because you're such a strong breather and because you're doing all that, your body's nervous system, that's the way that it's responding to that, is by locking up the hands. It's like your nervous system's trying to reset itself. Now, with the breathwork side of it, I think it also can have something to do with control, wanting to let go of stuff. But, I think like the physiological aspect happens. And then on top of that, it can start to bring up emotions because we're in this space of like resetting the nervous system. So there's nothing that like that does. And that tells me like, oh, this is trauma, or you got this thing coming up and you don't want to address it. That's not what that is. I think it's mainly because you are such a strong breather that it puts your body into that state. But in that state, it can tend to start to bring up some things that you maybe weren't otherwise aware of. Same thing with the yawning. You were yawning a bunch and everything. That's another nervous system reset. But what that can do is kind of, just like sighing, make you start to relax or start to feel like, okay, I can trust Shane. I can trust myself. I can allow myself to feel a little bit. So I don't necessarily try to just hit it with this, it's all trauma, you're afraid to let go of something. No, I don't think that's it. I think, like I said, because of the way that you breathe and being such a strong breather, it puts your body into this state. And then you have the ability in those moments to maybe start addressing some stuff that comes up.
Yeah, really, it felt like I've grieved and did some different things naturally, but the way this breath work I was actually feeling the pain and feeling, there was joy that you brought into the session. There was, you kind of allowed the space to be whatever came up. And it just showed that, I've talked about it, I've thought about it, I've cried about it, but I haven't really felt the pain. And it just felt like such a relief. And like before we did it, you told me that I might feel this overwhelming sensation of like some weight off my shoulders and, the frowning in my face just from holding that weight. And I can feel that weight down, it just felt good to get to that level I didn't know I had in me.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, man, like it's one of those things where, not that I have worry, but I've known you for a long time. And I know that that's why that was one of those things, because I feel like, you've been in this role, you've been in this place to carry everything on your shoulders. I need you to perform. I need you to show up. I need you to be Jack. I need you to be my number one guy. And you don't take enough time for you to just kind of go, man, I don't want to carry this load all the time. I have some things that I need to get off my chest as well, and I think you took advantage of that. Do you want to talk about specifically what came up in the way of the pain and emotion?
Absolutely. I guess I'll share a little of my story and why it's relevant to what came up. But um, yeah, we did like the intense breath work for 30-40 minutes. Then we switched over into kind of the natural breath I noticed. And that's when everything started flowing in with emotion. And what came up was December 23rd, our puppy, who was about a year and a half old that we rescued, passed away suddenly, unexpectedly. And when I went to treatment, because I didn't want to live too much back in the day, I had a few close calls with taking my life. And we adopted her, and she was kind of like my best friend and brought so much joy and so much compassion and just lightened life up. I think last night I heard somebody say life's gonna life, which was really well put. Life happens. It's not that we're looking for an easy way, or growth doesn't come from easy. Growth comes from discomfort and kind of riding it. But she definitely made life enjoyable and chaotic. When I was laying there so present, just she used to grab, I used to throw stones at the beach and she would play fetch with them. And then I had like a fire pit and she would jump on top of the fire pit and put the stone on top of the fire pit. Like, who does that? And it was the funniest thing in the world. I grieved really hard about her for the last month. But today I felt the pain. I was in my fingers, it was in my abdominal muscles, it was in my legs by the end of it. It was something I've never experienced for sure.
And was it the pain of loss, or was it the pain of you not being able to show up in the time that you had with her, or a little bit of both?
It's a great question. Both, because in the beginning it was like, what could I have done? Like, I should have done X, Y, and Z so she could still be here right now. And the reality is that I'm not control what happened, yes. But as a human, we're always trying to figure out a way to have somebody we love be around longer, or
Yeah.
something we could have done different. But then the end was when you told me to grab that joy and bring it in. That's what I was thinking of when she would put the rock on the fire pit and I would throw it and then we play fetch and all the different memories. She'd watch me cook every night on the counter. And I didn't want to let go of that joy because it felt like that's what I have left up her, so it was powerful.
And I had told Jack in the beginning, in my experience, what I've seen with breath work is that most men, myself included, we're carrying a lot of the trauma up in the shoulders, the furrowed brow, right? So much anger and which is just fear and, somebody hug me kind of thing. But it's like this hug me, but get away from me, forever. And as well as you know, being a soldier, being a sports professional, being somebody that's a high level performer or a lot is expected from you, you never have time to crack. You never have time to break. A lot of times with women, I'm going to see it in their throat, in their hips due to sexual trauma, and that can still happen with males as well. But a lot of times, any sexual trauma stuff is going to be carried in the hips. And the reason why a lot of women are locked up here is because it's been, you don't have a voice, shut up, do what I say. They've been in abusive relationships. They had abusive parents. And I'm not talking like hit you parents, but where your voice didn't matter. And what happens with breath work is it starts to release and free this stuff and remind you that you do have a voice and remind, men that you don't have to keep your shoulders up and your brow furrowed. It's okay to relax once in a while. I was so afraid when I first did breath work that it was going to make me such like a weak welcome mat for everyone. And that's not the case. Like I still stay true to who I am, but I don't have to like wear this bravado or that I have to have it all figured out all the time. Another thing is that, when I first started doing breath work, I thought all the magic happened in that active portion, right? So I got someone like you, someone breathing for 30 minutes and there's no emotional thing happen, nothing's going on. I'm like, man, what did I do wrong? I didn't get it, blah, blah. And then I started to realize like more times than not, it's in that relaxation time with the slow music. And now that your breath starts to slow down and you come into that, all these things start to come to you. And that's kind of what seemed like happened for you, and I think that's another thing with breath work that blew my mind where I'm like, all right, I did all the heavy lift and nothing happened. And then next thing you know, like that, the waterworks come on and it's like, what did you just do to me?
Yeah, you called it before the session where it was like the first song or two. By the way, I love the songs you play. So I mean, they just hit different. That's like my go-to playlist. So good taste. But yeah, that first song or two, 4 or 5 minutes, you're kind of like, all right, that's good. Thanks, Shane. See you tomorrow. But then once you dig in and you're like, oh, this is actually relaxing, like I'll give it another song. And then all of a sudden you're like 90 minutes into it, 60 minutes into it, and you're like, holy smokes, what just happened? Like now I'm crying. Now I have this overwhelming sensation of like, I want to be present for my current dogs rather than, living in the past. There's just so many emotions came up and it wasn't like I was thinking about them. They just kind of naturally came up, which was it's hard to get to that level. I guess in sports, they call it in the zone. And you can't just magically get to that perfect 5 out of 10. You can get to like a 4 or 6, but your preparation, what you do helps you get into the 5. And I feel like after the session, it naturally brought me into the zone. It's pretty amazing.
And a lot of times too, like when I have a client or I do breath work with someone and I tell them shut the door, no kids, no wife, no pets, no nothing. And before the session, Jack was like, my dogs come in and out. He's got two other dogs and he's like, they always come in and out for calls and stuff. And I was like, all right, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Cause what happens a lot of time, the animals lay down in front of the camera and I can't see or something happens. But this was a little bit unique, man, and I feel like I allowed it and didn't bring it up or didn't go, "All right, man, hold on, let's start over," because, I'm a dog person, and I am a true believer in dogs and little kids will let you know if somebody's, a decent person or not, and the way that I watched these dogs come in and interact with you and the unwavering This dog sat there and licked your face for probably 2 minutes straight, and you didn't even miss a beat. Like you kept breathing, kept trying to push him away, but like so gentle and kind. Whereas if that's me, I'm like, will you get out of here? You know, and I'm thinking, like, man, I am not a dog lover like Jack, you know, and like to me, I feel like, you know, the dogs knew. They knew that something was up. They knew that you were doing something that was gonna get you emotional, and they wanted to be there for you, and I felt like, who it's it was alright. It didn't really bother me, and they came in at specific moments and then would walk away, and like I said, even as gentle at times where you try to push them away and they would fight your hand, went down and sat near your legs, went on one side of you, the other side of you, came back, licked your face. And then when you were finished in the end and they came over and I watched them lick the tears off your face, man, you know? And it's like, that's my interpretation of that, like these dogs knowing that like you're having a tough time and that they love you and that they're here for you and that they know that, you know, they know, man. They know. And I thought that was really special, dude.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And they are special. You know, we could have a whole nother podcast about dogs and how in tune they are with our behaviors, and that'd be a fun one. But no, I want to really just give you the props though, because you have a gift. Frankly, I've worked with so many different therapists, like sports psychologists, all have helped me tremendously. But what you bring with the breath work, it's just rare, man. Like I've done yoga, you know, some of that meditation, mindfulness, where it's like, oh, that's cool. It's nice to get a taste of that.
Yeah.
It's like this is what you do and what a special gift it is. And not only can you help people going through trauma or that have experienced it in the past that are working towards it. But I also found the other side of it of like, man, I have an awesome life. Like, I'm gonna go ahead and give myself the time to be present with what comes up. But man, now I feel even more grateful for what I have. And what a cool blessing that is that you can provide that, you know?
Yeah, man. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, you know, it's one of those things that it allowed me to, like you said, I you know, you can cry about stuff, you can grieve, you can do some stuff, but it's just kind of like that next layer of stuff that maybe we didn't address. And it's like I think it's important to whatever comes up, what came up for you in that session is to like, you know, talk about it, talk to your wife. If you got a therapist, you talk to a therapist too. Like, you know, I just think it's one of those things where it doesn't just end at breath work either, right? It's like from that, you take that and you talk to people about your experience. You talk to them about what came up, about what's going on for you. And, you know, I think it's really a special thing, dude, especially like when you see, like I told you, you know, whenever I do a session for somebody and their reaction is holy shit, you know, what was that? What just happened? I was not expecting that, you know, and it's like that's why I started doing this. That's why I got into this because the same thing happened for me. And I couldn't believe it made me just go like, how did I not know about this till I was in my 30s? How did it take me so long to find something like this? And thank you for, you know, for trusting me to hold that space for you and allowing you to, you know, show up for yourself, dude.
No, I appreciate you, Shane. With me going into the life coaching game and that world, this breath work really just takes my stuff to another level. So I can see us really teaming up and you working on me. And, you know, I like to take what I learned from this session and look into it and see what needs tweaking, you know. So I could just see how these two worlds just coexist beautifully. So I can't wait to build their relationship even more.
Well, I think, like you said too, it's like, you know, for those that don't know about breath work is an active meditation, right? So you can go to the gym and think about working out, and it's like, you know, meditation is great and all that stuff works as well, but uh, you, what I find when I do just straight up meditation is my mind can wander, right? While I'm trying to stay present, while I'm trying to concentrate or whatever, I still go like, we got to get groceries. I got to get an oil change. What time is my appointment tomorrow? Like that stuff. And then I'm like, oh yeah, hold on. I got to flush that out. Let me reset because with meditation, I got to reset every time that I wander. And that happens quite often. With breath work, it's active. You have to participate. You have to show up and you have to breathe and you gotta, do the work. And just like you said in the beginning, anything that is worth its weight requires work, and I told you in the beginning too, like if you're uncomfortable, that's one thing. Good. This is the kind of work where you get uncomfortable short term so you can be comfortable long term, as opposed to being in pain, right? I told you if you were in pain or something like that, then that's another story, and we take you down from that and try to figure that out. But if it's discomfort, you got to work through it. It's like going to the gym and you want to hit 10 reps and you're on 8, and it's like, man, my biceps are really killing me. Well, is it pain or discomfort? Because if it's discomfort, then pump out those extra two. If it's pain, then put it down and walk away. So, um, that was great, dude. You did a really solid job. I was a little bit worried too of like, it sometimes is tough too when it's like, oh, this is a friend of mine and we already have a certain relationship. And are you willing to kind of change that dynamic for an hour to allow me to be in charge, right? Of your emotions, of your well-being, of your safety. And I think that's a tough thing. And sometimes that can, you go like, I don't know if I want to be fully honest here. I don't know if I want to fully commit to this because what if he thinks I'm a nerd or what if I cry? And it's like, you came in and you went all in, man. So well done.
Well, I appreciate it. I'll leave it on this too. Like you just talked about anybody interested in working with you, like your coachability and what you bring, your knowledge is incredible. But I love what you said about going to the gym. Like I had to lift the weights there. The person signing up for the class, like you're not just going and listening to a nice, easy meditation track. Like you're lifting the weight. So be prepared to work, but man, it's worth it. So I appreciate you.
Well, Jackie, I love you, dude. And, down the line, we'll have you on so that we can, hear some more of your story because it's a good one. And, we'll talk soon, my friend.
Love you too, brother. I'll see you later on tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.